In a distant kingdom, where towering mountains hid themselves in mist and endless fields stretched into the horizon, there lived a young man named Arin. His home was a tiny, dilapidated straw hut, perched precariously on the outskirts of the grand capital. Arin's life was a monotonous cycle of bleakness. Each morning, before the first rays of dawn could break through, he would rise from his tattered blanket, drag his weary feet out the door, and set off in search of work. His calloused hands took on every grueling task, carrying loads, digging earth, hauling water, just to earn a few meager coins, barely enough for a simple meal of rice and wilted greens. At night, he returned to his cold, drafty hut, where the wind whistled through the cracks in the walls, cooked a humble supper, and sank into a restless sleep, devoid of dreams. Once upon a time, Arin had known a different life, one filled with warmth and modest comfort. His parents had been diligent merchants, honest and hardworking, who instilled in him the value of integrity. But fate dealt a cruel blow. When Arin was just a boy, wicked men conspired against his family, stripping them of their wealth and driving them into ruin. His parents perished in anguish, leaving Arin orphaned and alone, forced to fend for himself against the hunger, the cold, and the unforgiving harshness of the world. Yet, despite his poverty, a fierce pride burned within Arin's heart. He vowed to himself that no matter how heavily hardship weighed upon his shoulders, no matter how unjust life became, he would never abandon the noble quality his parents had planted in him: honesty. It was the only light guiding him through the darkness of his destiny. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of crimson, and a chilly breeze began to stir, Arin trudged along the dusty path toward home after another fruitless day. His stomach growled with hunger, his legs trembled with exhaustion, and a deep despondency gnawed at his soul. "Why is my life an endless string of dark days?" he wondered bitterly. "Why can't I escape the shadow of poverty?" Just then, as his mind swirled with despair, a voice, deep, warm, and resonant, as if it came from another realm, cut through his turmoil. "Young man, is there anyone willing to take on a heavy task?" Startled, Arin turned around. Before him stood an elderly man, his frame thin but his eyes blazing with an inexplicable vitality. He wore simple, rough-spun clothes, yet an air of quiet authority radiated from him, hinting at a hidden depth. Beside him sat 3 large sacks, their weight apparent even from a glance. "I can do it," Arin replied without hesitation, his voice ringing with resolve. The old man smiled, a smile both kind and enigmatic, and nodded slowly. "I need to reach a village far from here, many miles down the road. I can carry 2 of these sacks myself, but the third is too much for an old man like me. If you help me carry it to our destination, I'll pay you 3 gold coins." 3 gold coins! The word struck Arin like a thunderbolt. To him, it wasn't just money. It was a dream beyond reach. Enough food for months, a new pair of shoes to replace his tattered sandals, perhaps even a glimmer of hope to break free from his misery. Without a second thought, he bent down and hoisted the sack onto his shoulder. But the moment he did, he froze. It was impossibly heavy, as if an entire boulder had been stuffed inside. "What's in this sack that makes it so heavy, sir?" Arin asked, his breath quickening with effort. The old man's eyes glinted with a playful spark. "Copper coins. Can you carry it?" Arin nodded, though a flicker of doubt stirred within him. But the vision of 3 gold coins drowned out his hesitation. Clenching his jaw, he hefted the sack higher and set off alongside the old man, unaware that this journey would alter the course of his life forever. They traveled across dusty trails and parched fields, the sun sinking lower until darkness cloaked the land. A biting wind whipped through the air, piercing Arin's thin shirt and sending shivers down his spine. When they reached a wide, rushing river, its waters roaring with a menacing growl, Arin stepped carefully into the icy current. The sack on his shoulder threatened to drag him under, but he gritted his teeth, pushing forward with sheer determination until he reached the far bank. Panting, he turned back, only to see the old man still standing motionless on the opposite shore. "Why aren't you crossing, sir?" Arin called out, his voice battling the howling wind. The old man sighed, a hint of weariness in his tone. "I'm too old, too weak. I can't carry these 2 sacks across such a raging river. If I tried, I'd surely be swept away. Could you come back and help me with one more? I'll give you another 3 gold coins." Arin hesitated, his heart pounding. One sack had already left his shoulders aching. Another would be agony. But the promise of 6 gold coins shimmered in his mind, banishing his fatigue. He nodded, wading back through the frigid water, its chill seeping into his bones. Before handing over the second sack, the old man fixed him with a probing stare. "But you must promise not to run off with the money inside. Can you do that?" Arin frowned, a surge of indignation rising within him. "Do you take me for a thief? I'm not that kind of person." The old man shrugged, his voice cool and detached. In times like these, who can truly know another's heart? The words stung like a slap to Arin's pride. Jaw clenched, he snatched the sack and slogged back across the river, the twin burdens weighing him down. When he reached the other side, he stood there, chest heaving, glaring at the old man with a mix of exhaustion and resentment. Yet deep inside, his pride blazed on. He would prove he was no coward, no betrayer. Their journey pressed on until they arrived at a steep, rugged hill, its rocky face looming like a challenge to any who dared ascend. The old man halted, letting out a heavy sigh. "Young man, I'm too old for this. Climbing this hill with even 1 sack is beyond me." Arin almost laughed, a bitter, weary sound. He knew what was coming. "So you want me to carry the 3rd sack too?" he asked, his voice tinged with fatigue and frustration. The old man nodded, but this time his gaze turned sharp, piercing. "Yes, but this sack holds gold. Real gold. If you run off with it, I couldn't possibly catch you. I'm too frail, too slow to chase a young man like you." Arin threw his head back and let out a harsh, mirthless laugh. "I've carried 2 sacks for you through all this hardship, and you still don't trust me? What do you take me for?" "I don't know," the old man replied evenly, his tone a deliberate challenge. "But if you're as honest as you claim, prove it." Fury flared in Arin's chest, but he swallowed it down. He bent down, lifted the 3rd sack, and added it to the crushing load on his shoulders. All 3 sacks now bore down on him, each step sinking into the earth, as if rooted there. Yet he walked on, slow and resolute, as if to shout to the world that he was neither a failure nor a liar. On that endless road, as sweat soaked his shirt and his breaths grew ragged, a dark thought flickered in Arin's mind like a lightning bolt splitting the night. If I run now, the old man could never catch me. With this gold, I could change my life. At first, it was a fleeting whisper, fragile as a breeze through the leaves, but it grew, swelling into a wildfire that consumed his reason. He's old. He doesn't need this money anymore. But me? I could buy a fine house, marry a beautiful girl, live the lavish life I've never dared dream of. His heart raced, blood surging to his head. His legs trembled, not from exhaustion, but from the temptation roaring within him. He glanced back at the old man, a small, plodding figure, powerless to stop him. And then he made his choice. Turning on his heel, he bolted, the 3 sacks bouncing against his back as he fled into the night like a beast hunted by his own greed. Back in his crumbling hut, Arin barred the door, his heart hammering as if it might burst. His trembling hands tore open the sacks, his eyes alight with visions of a glorious future. But then everything shattered. No gold, no silver, not even a single copper coin. Just stones, cold, lifeless pebbles filling each sack to the brim. Arin stood frozen, his knees buckling beneath him. He clawed through the piles in a frenzy, desperate for even a hint of wealth. Then he found it, a small scrap of paper tucked among the rocks. With shaking hands, he unfolded it and read, "I am the king of this realm. I have no heir. For years, I've roamed the land seeking an honest, trustworthy soul to adopt as my son and pass down my throne. If you hadn't run, you would have become a prince, the ruler of this entire kingdom." Arin's heart stopped. A searing pain ripped through him, as if 1,000 daggers pierced his chest. In a single moment of weakness, consumed by the flames of greed, he had thrown away the greatest chance of his life. A lesson carved in bone. Arin's tale is more than a story of loss. It's a haunting reminder of the power of thought. A single negative impulse, a fleeting lapse where greed clouded reason, was enough to alter a man's destiny forever. As the Buddha once taught, his words echoing through time, "Our greatest enemy lies not outside us, but within, the wicked thoughts of our own minds. Guard your thoughts, for they are tiny seeds with the power to shape the vast fields of your life." Arin learned this truth, but the cost was steep. A kingdom lost, and a heart forever burdened by regret.